Hello everybody, we are back here on the Hunter Call of the Wild. You guys have been asking for a moose guide on Layton for quite a while, so I figured why not do that today. Now there's going to be a few things we'll go over. This is probably going to be a pretty quick guide because moose are quite unpredictable, so there's not really too much I can say aside from a few things that I've learned. This is the loadout that I use to hunt moose. Now you can use any combination of 338s and 300s. I have the 22 so that I can shoot next to the animal to get them to turn if they're facing away from me. And aside from that, it's just your normal polymer tip bullets, as well as I keep both scopes on me so that I can swap out depending on the situation. I don't use any collars or anything over here. We do have the Apex View binoculars, as well as some tents on us in case a tent gets taken down by beavers, which happens quite a lot nowadays. Now, in terms of the range that you're going to have to search for moose on Layton, it's pretty large. Now, I'm going to draw kind of like a line with my mouse. Anything to the left of where my mouse is places where you can find moose. Now, I believe they can be clear over to here. They can go like to about here, and then it kind of goes through this way and up this river, clear to the very top of the map. Anything to the left of that area is going to have moose, and we're going to real quickly include one of Pro XCK's maps here. He lets me use his maps in these videos as long as I credit him. So this is the map that Pro XCK has drawn up for the hotspots that you can expect to find moose drink zones. And where are you going to find those moose drink zones in terms of the time? Like, what time do you have to go to in order to find them? Well, 12 to 16. Now, I personally have seen that if you go in the latter half of that drink time, the moose are more likely to be in their zones faster and more consistently, so I'd set the time to either 13 or 14, and then hunt on and try to find all of your zones. I would recommend that if you're doing herd management, try to manage down all of the solos first, as they are incredibly annoying as you progress. If you're not doing herd management, it doesn't matter how you do it, just hunt the moose and enjoy. So I think since I just mentioned herd management, let's actually do the herd management part of this guide first, and then after we'll get into the non-herd management tips and tricks and stuff. If you're doing herd management, you're going to want to try to make your main zones as many of these zones that have at least 2 males and 2 females, because you want to make sure that you don't delete the zone by leaving only one animal in it. If you do that, they will not get respawns. But you want to try and make it so as many of these zones that you're having as your main ones have at least 2 males, because otherwise you're going to be shooting 1 male per zone, and that's not as time efficient as if you've got 2. Normally this zone has 2, but right now it only has 1 because we actually just got a great one out of this last night, and I haven't had a chance to rotate on the map anymore, so we haven't got any of our respawns. Now, for herd management, you are going to want to leave level 2s and level 1s, as well as the level 3s that have the same rack as a level 2. If it looks exactly the same as a level 2, but it says level 3, you can leave those on the map. Another thing that I do have to mention, because I get asked this so often. I have people tell me, like, I've managed down everything on my map, and I keep having 2s show up, and now I've got nothing to shoot. What am I doing wrong? I also have people say that they're just not getting diamonds after thousands of kills, and their herd management just doesn't seem like it's activated. And unfortunately, there is something that I feel a lot of creators, including myself, have failed to mention enough in the past. And that is the fact that herd management isn't based off of the zones you're hunting. It's based off of every single zone on your map for that species. So for example, I have over 110 moose zones on my map. I have to herd manage at least 70% of the males in all of those zones in order to get the optimal results. Now, I didn't go quite that far because moose are quite difficult in terms of chasing around the solos and stuff, so if you can get to like 50 to 60% of your map managed down, then that's typically good enough. But that's the biggest thing that people forget in herd management, is that it's based off of your entire population of that animal, not just the zones you found. If you've only found 30 of your 100 plus moose zones, then of course you're not going to see any results. You have to manage the entire map. You have to be hunting every single zone if you want to get the maximum results possible. And I think honestly that might be why there's so much confusion amongst the community as to like how herd management can be difficult. There's a lot of people that think that it's just as simple as shoot the big ones, don't shoot the small ones, but it's not that simple. It can take hundreds of hours to go through your entire map, hunt every single one of these drink zones that you guys are seeing right now, and manage like 60 to 70% of them down. It is a very tall task. It's not an easy thing to do, and it can take a lot of time if you really want to get the best results. And this is one of the biggest reasons that I recommend if you're a newer player that is trying to get into grinding, don't start with herd management, as it is very complicated and can take a very long time to do it properly. It very much is an endgame way of grinding that's going to give you the maximum possibilities for trophies showing up. And it's one of those things where I just don't recommend doing it if you're a lower level player or if you haven't played the game a lot, because it can take the fun out of it quite a bit if you're already, if you're not used to all of the other stuff in the game already. So this is something that I forgot to mention when I was recording this video, so I'm going to interject it now. The whole purpose of herd management is to increase the amount of diamond spawns that you get and potentially increase the amount of great ones you get as well. It's unconfirmed if it affects great ones, but a lot of us in the community believe that it does, at least if you take herd management to a pretty extreme state. And really, the only limit to what you can do with herd management is what you decide to do, like how long you want to go before you decide that it's good enough. So go as far as you want with it, and, you know, whatever results you're happy with is when you should stop managing things down. But, you know, I get a lot of questions about how herd management works, why it works the way it does, so we're going to talk about that real quickly before we continue the video where I had left off. Essentially, what herd management does is when you get so many low-level animals on your map, the game sees that you have an overabundance of low levels, and it tries to compensate by spawning in some higher levels to kind of offset the amount of low levels you have. Think of it as the game like going into panic mode and seeing like, wow, there is a lot of really low-scoring animals here. We need to pump out some higher scoring animals to compensate, to make up for how much low-level animals are on this map. And because of that, you get an increased amount of diamonds popping up, and because of the fact that there's an increased amount of diamonds, anytime that you do get a rare fur type to spawn, there's a higher chance that it's going to be on a larger animal than if you weren't doing herd management. We think it could work the same way for great ones, but we're not 100% sure. Like I said, that's unconfirmed as to whether or not it actually affects great one spawns. I believe that it does at least a little bit. A lot of other people do as well, but there's also some that believe that it has absolutely no effect, and I used to be in that boat as well. Now, let's get back to the guide. Another thing I very highly recommend is if you're hunting moose, you need to be aiming for the heart if you want to maximize the speed at which you can grind them, because if you miss the heart and you just hit lung, it takes quite a while for a moose to die. So let's try for a heart shot right here. This guy is about 240 meters away, so I have 0 to 300, and I'm going to aim slightly low. And that right there is a heart shot. It drops almost immediately, which saves you so much tracking time. Heart shots are something that you will not immediately be good at. You are going to have to spend some time getting used to where the heart's located and the bullet drop of your weapon. So I recommend that anytime you're on the harvest screen, examine where your bullet hit, how big the heart is, where the heart is positioned, and all that type of stuff. Because you can tell where to shoot just by looking at this and figuring out, okay, the heart's like right there if it's facing me. If it's completely broadside, the heart's going to be right above the leg, like right on the shoulder. So you can kind of get an idea of where you need to aim just based on the harvest screen like this. Another thing to get used to is the bullet drop of your weapon and how accurate it is. Like the 338 and the 300 are going to perform very, very differently in terms of how much compensation you need for bullet drop and stuff like that. Another thing that is very, very helpful is once you have started your grind, if you're picking your main zones, you're picking the zones that you want to grind for the rest of your grind, obviously you try to manage down everything aside from your favorite zones, and it's nice to try and pick favorite zones that are close together. So for example, these two zones right here each had 2 bulls and 2 cows. Now, I've left one of them as a low level because it spawned as a level 1, which is pretty tough to get. So I've left one of them, but I have 3 moose between these 2 zones, and they're about 220 meters apart, which is far enough to where they will render in when you fast travel to your tent, and you're able to take out a couple of them like this. We're just going to shoot one of them for now. Actually, you know what? Let's get both of them. And then when you fast travel across to the other tent, you're going to notice that the ones that you were just standing on top of, the zone that you were standing on top of, is going to have its moose as well. So now that we're over here, let's look across, and we should see moose coming in. There they are, right there. As you can imagine, this saves a lot of time. The more zones you can hit up from less tents, the better. And because we've got tents on top of each of these zones, and they're across from each other, it is insanely quick to just fast travel and claim them after you've killed them. We've got, I mean, 2 of them just right here that we can go grab. And between getting hard shots on as many as possible and placing your tents well like this, you can have a pretty fast grind. Now, another trick that you can use is if for some reason you get to a zone and the moose aren't there. Let's just pretend that these guys are not here. What you can do is you can go into your tent and reset the time. You don't have to put it back that far. You know, I usually just bring it back to the beginning of the hour that it's in. And when you do that, a lot of the times if the animals aren't there, they will appear when you reset the time. And that can be very time-saving. Instead of just going to a different zone and then coming back to this one later, you're essentially just forcing them into the zone to make it so that you can take your shot. Now, if you are not doing herd management, a lot of the stuff that I've mentioned in this guide is not necessarily going to be quite as necessary to you. Now, the couple things I just mentioned with the tent placement and fast-forwarding the time or rewinding the time, that is going to be useful. However, you don't need to go around and manage down every single one of your zones and stuff like that. You can essentially void like all of the managing things down. You just find your favorite zones that you really like and start grinding them. That's really the only difference between HM or no HM is you just don't have to manage everything down, and you can just go straight to hunting the zones that you find that you really like. Hopefully this guide has helped you guys out a little bit. The thing about moose is like it's tough to make a perfectly accurate guide. Like moose are such a weird species in the fact that they've got smaller groups than a lot of the great one animals. They are quite inconsistent at times, and they can be literally anywhere on the map for a lot of the maps. Layton is the only one where they're kind of limited to only half, and even then, they can be at any body of water on that side of the map, as you saw in Pro XCK's hotspot map. It's kind of crazy how tough the moose can be at times, but hopefully this guide was helpful at least a little bit to you guys, because I know so many of you have been requesting a Layton Lakes moose guide. So I hope this helped at least a little bit, because there's not a ton of Layton moose guides out there, and moose in general are just a tough species. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a comment down below letting me know that this helped you. And also, if there's something I missed, let me know in the comments as well, as it very well could be something that I missed that would have been a helpful tip. If so, I'll pin some comments of like helpful tips and stuff if I see one of them down there. But thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoy the content. Hit the like, comment, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!